Hello, everyone, and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. My name is Emma Bakare, and today I'm going to talk to you about distinctive podcasting. So what I'll do first is I'll just talk to you a little bit about myself and what I do, and why this is unique to me and why I believe in it so strongly. So I'm a radio presenter. I've worked for UCB, Premier Radio, Konnect Radio, and I currently present the Network Chart Show and Riverman Bakare for 365 Radio. I'm also the co-founder and presenter for an online channel and podcast, and I'll go in a bit more detail about that later. So next, what I want to talk to you about is Christian radio and podcasting. So what is podcasting? Podcasting is a place and an outlet where you have a specific subjects that you want to talk about, and you can create different platforms for your podcasting. So there can be different platforms like SoundCloud, there's podcasts, there's loads of different websites where you as an individual will take a subject, something that you feel strongly about, that you want to talk about, you will record it, and then you will upload it to various different websites, or one website, or your YouTube channel, or your Instagram page, depending on what you choose to do. So that is what podcasting is. Now, why as Christians should we even invest in podcasting? I think when we think of podcasting, we do go to the very worldly things of podcasting, because now we are in the era of podcasting. There is podcasting for absolutely everything. I remember, like, even some of my old TV shows that I used to watch, now you have actors that are watching their own episodes and they're sharing a podcast about their experience of watching an episode. So it's out there and people are watching it and they're buying it and they're feeding into it. So why as Christians can we not do the same? Why can't we have our outlets, our faith, and why can't we share the good news via podcasting? So that would be the incentive of why we should do podcasting as Christians. We may think, well, podcasting, it's, I just don't see how it's going to reach anyone. It is a form of evangelizing. It's a form of sharing the gospel. And we are in the world, but we're not of the world. So as we are in the world, we need to find different outlets of how we should evangelize and reach out to different people. And that's where I want to now go on to Christian radio and working on Christian radio. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how I even came into that. So I've always wanted to be a radio presenter. I've always wanted to just be a presenter in general. And I wanted to combine my passion for radio and my passion and my faith and my belief as a Christian. I wanted to combine that together. However, I didn't start out in Christian radio. I started off in a community radio station, a little station called Voice of Africa. I started as an intern there, and then I progressed and became a presenter. I had my own show reel. And once I had my own voice reel even, I was able to share that out and try and get the job that I wanted. So for me, it was very important to have an outlet where I felt like I didn't have to be muted, and I can just share my gospel and also use my gift that I believe is radio presenting and reach out to other people. So my first job as a Christian radio presenter, or should I just say as a radio presenter, because I don't believe there is any difference, was at UCB, which you may know as United Christian Radio. Now, if UCB sounds familiar, that's because they do the Word for Today, and they have a very big radio station in Stoke-on-Trent. So when I relocated to up north to Manchester, I found out that UCB was not far from me, and I wrote to them and I sent them my voice reel and I said, I'm a radio presenter, I would like to work for you. And then the first time I applied to them, I actually didn't get the job. But I was like, no, this is where I need to be. So I applied again. And I got the job as a freelance radio presenter. And then I applied for another role as a full-time radio presenter. And I was there for about a year. Now, what is Christian radio? I'm going to talk to you about that. Christian radio is basically like any other commercial radio that you would hear, but they just play Christian songs. And in between, they talk about faith. They may have scriptures. They may have interviews that are faith-led. But it's pretty much what you would hear on commercial radio, but in a Christian context. So that is what Christian radio is. Unfortunately, it's not as big as commercial radio. There's not as a lot of money pumped into Christian radio, but it does still exist. However, a lot of Christian radios are charity led. They depend on charities to pay their presenters, to get them the money for the songs that they're playing. That is a lot of what Christian radio is. That is the same for UCB, it's the same for Premier Radio. I also worked at Premier for a bit. It's the same for Konnect Radio, which is also a Christian radio, but they do play secular songs. So that is what it is about. What is the difference between Christian radio and commercial radio? As I said before, not much, just that commercial radio has a very, very big funding. They can pay for, they have a big budget, let's just say that. So that is the only difference I would say in terms of Christian and commercial radio. Why is Christian radio important? It's important because radio is a very big outlet to talk to people. A lot of people listen to radio on their way to work, in their house, and they are entertained by radio. But radio doesn't just have to be for entertainment purposes. It can also be to evangelize. It can be to spread the gospel. I know people that have been saved because they were listening to a Christian radio station and they heard someone's testimony and they were like, wow, I love their life. I want to know God just the way that they do. So it can be so, so massive. If you're thinking about working as a presenter on Christian radio, as I've mentioned, a lot of Christian radio are charity-led, so they are looking for presenters, but a lot of Christian radio is also about volunteering. So there's always going to be an outlet for you to volunteer. If you believe that God has given you the gift to be a radio presenter, or it might not even be a radio presenter, it might be as a graphic designer, it might be as a social media representative. There is so many different Christian radio stations that you can reach out to if that's where you felt like God was leading you. And literally, if you wanted to find your local Christian radio station, you can just type it into Google. They always come up. They have their own websites. So it's very, very easy to do. Moving on, I want to talk to you about my outlet and my podcast. So I started Urban Smash TV, which you can see, and it is a place where I wanted to give a voice to young talent. I'm very passionate about talent, and I'm very passionate about talking to people and their journey and how they got started. So that was why I started Urban Smash TV. Now, Urban Smash TV, I wouldn't say it is necessarily focused on, I only interview Christian talent. No, I interview all walks of life because I think it's important to talk to everyone about their journey. But it doesn't mean that I still don't see it as a faith-driven and as something that God has led me to do, to interview these people, even though it may not specifically be about interviewing Christians and Christians in their field. I have done that in the past where I've interviewed Christian actors, Christian singers, Christian dancers, and spoke to them about their faith, but that is not what drives this outlet. But I still think it's very important because I don't think it always has to be black and white that, well, I'm a Christian, so I'm only going to make sure that everyone knows I'm a Christian company. So when I started Urban Smash TV, which changed to The Rise, it's not obvious that I'm a Christian presenter. However, I do believe that in the way I speak and the way I present myself, my light shines through that. So I may be speaking to someone that may be of the world, but they can see the light in me, I believe so anyway, that I believe can hopefully get them questioning and asking me about my background and why I started this and about my faith. Because if I was to be asked about my faith, it is never hidden. It's something that I talk to them about and I'm very passionate about. So I would say to you, if you're thinking of starting a podcast, depending on where God leads you, it doesn't have to necessarily be like, I'm only going to speak about this aspect that only affects Christians. Because at the end of the day, as being a light in this world, we also want to reach out to non-Christians. So sometimes it can be that if you just, and I'm not saying it's wrong to do this, but if you just kind of close yourself off to, well, I only want to reach out to other Christians, then that's great, amazing. But what about the ones that are not Christians? So I know that if sometimes as a non-Christian, if you see a podcast and you're like, oh, it's only talking about this, I don't think that's for me, then they might shy away. Obviously, if that's your remit to do that and you want to just reach out to other Christians, and then that's good. But I also do believe there is another way to reach out to the masses, and to talk about whatever it is, whatever your content is, to talk to those that are non-Christians as well. So that's just a little bit about my podcast and what I do. This is just a poster that I would initially have for my podcast. So as I said, it was Urban Smash TV, which changed to The Rise, and it's all about reaching out to inspiring talents or talents that are emerging. So as you can see, I had this lovely lady, Belinda Davis, who was on Britain's Got Talent, and I was just interested to speak to her about her journey, about why she did what she did. And I think sometimes when this happens, naturally, maybe faith may come up. I might not even plan to talk to her about her faith and her beliefs, but it just comes up naturally in conversation. So someone may be watching this and being like, oh, I want to watch it because I want to watch Belinda Davis. And then through that, something else may happen and may emerge. And that's what I think is very special about The Rise and about what I do. It starts off as something else and can emerge into different outlets and to reach different people. Next, what I want to talk to you about is social media. So, and I want to talk a lot about this because I'm not a social media expert at all, but I do think when you are starting your podcast, it's very important to be on social media, but not in the sense of be on, because Instagram and social media has changed a lot too. If we think about social media, it's a lot about this is what I'm doing. It's a lot about showing off and having that picture perfect life and just showing the razzle dazzle. But it doesn't have to be like that. It can be very much of the purpose of, yes, you want to evangelize and you want to reach out to different outlets. And that's why you start on social media. But I do think that however God leads you into social media, it can be beneficial. I am someone that I'm on social media, but I don't have tons and tons of followers. I'm not constantly posting. I'm not like, oh, look at my life, look at what I'm eating, look at what I'm drinking, oh, look, hi, I'm in Paris or whatever they do now on social media. It has a purpose, and my purpose for my social media is to talk about my work, not so much to talk about my faith. Like I wouldn't go and start just posting scriptures and this, but I do talk about my work, and if my work is to do about faith, then I will post that. And that is my purpose for social media. So I will say to you, if you are questioning your social media page, perhaps you have one or you don't have one, I would ask yourself, what is my purpose? Why am I driven to have a social media page? If it is just to show off, to say, hey, this is my life and this is what I'm doing, I would think about, okay, what is the reasons behind doing that? I don't think it's a bad thing, but you have to be very honest with yourself on why you are doing it. And also, I wouldn't focus too much on oh, I know I don't have loads and loads of followers, I need to get more followers. Because I think when you do that, you can find yourself in a very dangerous position. You may be thinking, well, I have to have a lot of followers, because if I want people to listen to my podcast, I need to have a massive outlet. It doesn't have to be like that, but as long as if you can be driven, focused, and you have a purpose for your social media, then I think social media can be a very wonderful thing. As I mentioned, one of the questions here is, do I need to be on all the social media platforms? No. Do I need to be on some of the social media platforms? No, you don't have to. But as I said, if you feel led to be on a social media platform, then of course, yes, do that. But it's not a necessity to have a podcast. So I want to talk to you very briefly about how you can create your own podcast. What you need to think about is your content. What am I doing? What is my mission? As I mentioned, when I started the Rise slash Urban Smash TV, my mission was to reach out to emerging talent and to talk about their journey and how they got to where they got to, how they got to their position. And it's important to me because I wanted to inspire a new generation. So that was my mission, and that is what I strive to do. So that was my content, whether it will be a Christian artist or whether it will be a non-Christian artist. I wanted to reach to both demographics. And then, so that's what I would say to you. Content has to be so key. If you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know what you're going to do your podcast about, there's no point of even trying to have your own podcast, because you just will get wrapped up in other things and it will not be distinctive. As long as you have a distinctive message, then you can go forward. Equipment. You don't need a lot of equipment. You just need a good microphone and a laptop. That's all I would say. Some microphones are better than others, but you don't need to spend loads of money if you just want to start your podcast. I work as a radio presenter at the moment for 365 Radio, and because it's a company and it's important for the quality of what I do, it's important to the company and to myself. I have got a microphone that I spent a little bit more on because of my outlet, but I record all of my radio shows from home with one mic and my laptop. That's literally all you need, and some headphones, obviously, to listen to your voice. So in terms of equipment wise, you don't need more than that. Now I want to talk to you about platforms and what platforms you could use to reach out and to put your podcast on. There's so many different platforms. There's so many different free platforms as well. So it doesn't matter which one. I think as long as you make it visible and you let people know what your platform your podcast is on, it doesn't really matter which one. But I've just listed a few, as you can see here. SoundCloud is something that I'm very familiar with. It's something that once you have recorded your podcast, you literally put it out on SoundCloud. You download it, and then it's made public, and then they give you a link, and then you can share that link on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever you have it. And then the other outlets which you may be more familiar with, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. YouTube, again, if you want to do a podcast that's video recorded, then you just literally record yourself and you upload it onto your YouTube channel. Instagram have a feature where you can do live interviews. So if that's what you want to do, you want to do your podcast on as a live interview, then Instagram and Facebook actually is a very good forum to do that. And in fact, that's how I do the Rise. When I'm doing live interviews, I actually use Instagram Live. I record the interviews, and then once it's recorded, I then will put it on the Rise Facebook page and YouTube page. So yeah, that is basically it. That's what I wanted to talk to you today about.